Record. Thanks for joining me today for this flash webinar. We're going to be talking about the third option. And if you look at the business world, the typical model is you can either stay home as a mom with your kids or you can go out and work in the world. And it's really hard to do both. And it's really hard to do one or the other because it seems like there's always something that you're missing out on. And this is where I found myself when I was staying at home. I worked since probably middle of high school, all the way until shortly after our first was born. And it just always seemed like something was missing. And it seemed like something was always being sacrificed, whether it was time with Holly after she was born, or it was time with my husband mostly. The way we worked out our schedules is I would go to work in the morning and he would be home with Holly. And then we would see each other for about 5 minutes passing, and then he would go to work for the rest of the day. And while it worked logistically, it didn't do very good things for our marriage just because we never saw each other and we never talked to each other. So then once we had 2 more kids and I had stayed home full time from then we had other issues where, well, now I'm staying home full time, so I'm always with the kids, but we need that, that financial property of having a job. And so, I just felt stuck. Like I felt like if I went out and got a job, then somebody else is going to be watching our kids. And that's not what I wanted to do. And I felt like if I continued just to stay home with our kids, it was great because I was with them. But then we were really tight on money, and it put more stress on my husband because he was already working way too much. And he was salary, and his job was totally taking advantage of how hard he works. And so like I said, we just felt like we were stuck. And shortly before this, I got started. I'm going to share my screen now, so we'll see if this works, so you can see a little bit of my story and how I got started. Oops, that's not the screen you want to see. Okay. So if you can see this here, so this is how I got started. I had been introduced to Shaklee in 2013. And at that time, I was pregnant with our third. And I went on a play date with Alyssa, and we talked about Shaklee a little bit. And she asked if she could come do a presentation at my house. And I said, sure, I'm really into, doing things naturally. And that kind of thing. So it sounded like something that I would like. So she came and she did her presentation, and it was one of those where I want everything button, but I want a great deal kind of thing. So because I was overwhelmed with wanting everything, I ended up only getting a couple things. Like I think I got Scour Off and Basic G. And then I kind of forgot about it for a while. And it wasn't until it was shortly before I had Emma, our third, and I felt like something needed to change. Like I had no energy, and the kids were super energetic, and I just couldn't keep up with them. And then I remembered, oh yeah, Shaklee has a bunch of that good stuff. Like maybe I should look at that. And then Alyssa approached me and said she needed to reach one of her goals, and so I thought, okay, well. I can help my friend by getting one of these kits, and then I can also work towards my goals using it. And so that's what I did. You can see here that I started drinking 1 shake a day, so it wasn't anything too crazy. I didn't totally, radically change my diet or anything like that. But I started working out 5 to 6 days a week, 20 to 30 minutes each, and it was at home. It wasn't in the gym. I didn't have time to do that, honestly. And I just, I ate some more salads with lean protein every day rather than my typical snacking off my kids' plates and eating burgers all the time. And I was just amazed at how I felt. I didn't really see a lot of change on the scale per se, but it was mostly in the way that my clothes fit and just in the energy that I had. I really felt great, and I wanted to share that with other people. And so I started doing that. And then Alyssa, introduced me again to the other side of Shaklee, which is that third option that I want to talk about today, is having your own business, your at-home business. And so I thought, oh man, I can share my story and what's worked for me, and I can get paid for it too. And I thought that was a really great deal. And so I started my business in October of 2014. And I've been doing it ever since. And I love sharing, and I love the freedom that it's given me. I love that, my schedule is flexible. I can work in between, my kids napping, and different activities that we have with the kids. It also helps me with my husband because he's in the military. We have a lot of things that are a last minute notice type of deal where I have to just show up, and it allows me to do that. So I really love, all the different aspects of this business. And, it's really great for that third option where you don't feel like you have to sacrifice either your family or your career. And so, that's why I got started. And the other thing that's really huge in this business for me is personal growth. Back in high school and college, I was very outgoing. I did theater all the time. I was singing in musicals on stage in front of hundreds of people, and didn't bat an eye. And then something happened after I had kids and staying home for a while with them. I almost felt like part of me disappeared, and I didn't know how to interact with adults anymore, because I was watching cartoons all day long, and I was commanding my little kids around and, talking in funny voices. And so I just felt awkward when I would get in public with big groups of people. And I felt like, I knew deep down that wasn't me. And I didn't know where to find that me again. And Shaklee has been amazing at bringing out that old me and helping me to be better now. I have confidence to talk to people now. I don't feel as awkward. I still feel awkward when I talk to people, but, but I don't feel as nervous. I don't feel as awkward to do it. And I realize that this is a gift to share, and I love being able to help people. So it's really the personal growth that it's given me is incredible. And I know that, it's just only going to increase as I do this job. I call it a job. It's not really a job, but as I do my business longer and longer, and another thing that it does is it has taught me that I need to be teachable, because I'm one of those people where I want to do everything myself, and that doesn't work very well because I don't know what I'm doing all the time. And I love that this business, it's your business. You're in business for yourself, but you're not in business by yourself. And we have great leaders like Alyssa and Charlene. And I've been so blessed to be able to work alongside Charlene lately. And she's, come alongside me and teaching me and, sharing with me what has worked for her. And, if you know her, she's super successful. She's at the, the top. She's a presidential master coordinator for life. So, she's worked really hard and she knows what she's doing. And I love that Shaklee has a family like this that wants to help us succeed and wants to teach us and encourage us. And just the other day, Roger Barnett, who is our president and CEO, commented on one of my posts in one of our Shaklee groups, and I just about fell off my chair. Like, I don't think I ever... I used to work at a big bank, and I don't think I ever talked to the president and CEO in the whole 5+ years that I worked there. He didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was. I didn't really know anything about him, and he definitely didn't know anything about me, So it was pretty incredible, and it just goes to solidify that, Shaklee really is a family all the way from the top, all the way down to people who are just starting. And I really love that about this business. And another thing is that, you can't succeed without helping other people. And I think that's really different from what the world thinks. Maybe not what they think, but what they do. I know when I worked at the bank, usually you stepped on people to get to the top where you wanted, what you wanted to do. And that's not what I believe personally in how to be successful. And I love that this company doesn't believe that either. And you really can't be successful without helping other people. So, those are just some of my favorite reasons why I love this business. But I want to talk a little bit about, too, the fears that you may have for doing this business. And I'm here to tell you I felt them, too. And now my feelings towards them has, radically changed. A lot of times people are afraid that, I don't know anybody. Who am I going to talk to? And the truth is, I thought the same thing. I was like, man, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I talk to my kids all day. Well, they're not going to buy Shaklee, like what? Who am I going to talk to? And really, if you sit back and you think about it, you're constantly meeting new people every day. When you go to the grocery store, you're meeting the cashier. Whether you take the time to interact with her or not, is your choice. If you go to the playground, there's so many other moms there, so many other families that you can introduce yourself to and just start that relationship. So there's always people to talk to, always. It just is a matter of you stepping out of your comfort zone and reaching out to them, and forming those relationships. Another thing is, people are afraid that they don't know what they're doing. And I kind of mentioned this before about, that's why we have, people who have been in it longer than us and are more successful than us to lead us along and guide us. So you're never alone in this business. And, when you have an issue, there's always somebody who is willing to talk to you and to help you get through that. And another big one, is that people have no time. Now, I understand this. My day is from the time I get up to when I fall into bed at night. It's nonstop. We're constantly doing something. A lot of it is, because we have agreed to do different things, whether it's volunteering or it's serving, in different ministries. But it's very busy. And it took me a little bit to sit back and see that there's actually more time in the day than we think. We just do a lot of things that kind of suck our time away from us, and we don't even realize it. For example, I do use my phone for business, like with Facebook and stuff. But there's a lot of other times where I'm mindlessly on Facebook or Pinterest or whatever. And, and I'm not doing anything for my business. I'm really just sitting there and wasting time. And if you sit down and you look at things like that and you actually write down the amount of time you spend, you realize, wow, I need to get off Pinterest, So it's pretty incredible how much we do that is really unnecessary. And some of it's, I've even found in my business, I'm just spinning my wheels and, I could be doing something else that would be better with my time. So that's another one that, another fear that people have, and it really is easy to overcome if you do the work to see where you can fit it in. And you don't have to work 40 hours a week. Sorry, I got a fryer here. A second. Honey, I know you need to go. Another one that was personal for me was I have done a business like this before, and I failed at it because I quit. And I didn't understand the business model. I didn't understand how that I could make money and be successful. So that was maybe, on my part, or maybe I just didn't have the leadership I needed to explain it. But whatever the reason was, the point is I quit. And the great thing about this business is as long as you keep going and you keep sharing with people, you might have some months that are a little slower, and then you might have months that are, totally incredible, until you get that foundation built. But as long as you don't quit, as you don't give up, you will succeed. And some people do it faster than others, and some people do it slower. We have some people who, I just saw a story of a lady who reached, master coordinator in like the shortest amount of time that anyone's ever done it, So some people do it fast. And then there's, people like me where I've been in it for almost 2 years now. And, I'm not a director yet, but that's just because, I'm working at a slower pace and I'm getting there, and I want a solid foundation that's unshakable. So, it's all about not quitting. And I love that. Another big hesitation and fear that people have is of multi-level marketing or direct selling, or, whatever you want to call it, type of business. They think it's a scheme. They think it's a pyramid. And, if you look at the typical business model of a job, you have the owner of the company, and then you have the sub owners, I guess, and you have the people under them, and you have like the supervisors, and then you have the workers, and then you have like the brand new people who are at the bottom. Well, that looks like a pyramid to me, So really, all jobs are pyramids. And I always tell people that, it's not a pyramid scheme, because if it were, That's illegal, first of all. And I would never engage in any kind of illegal activity. The truth is, you don't get your success from other people. You get your success from what you do in your business. And as you grow, you know, people's volume works towards yours, but you still aren't getting their pay. So yeah, it's not, you know, it's not something to be scared of. It's something to embrace, especially in the job market now with, you know, people can't follow the same model of go to college, get a good job, stay there forever and retire, because that's not the way that the job market works these days. More so now it's go to college, work a few years doing something that is not really related to your degree just so you can get your feet, you know, set, and then try to find a job, but only stay there for a few years because you don't want to get fired or look like you've been there too long. And so it just creates this process of, you know, starting over every few years so that, you know, you don't get laid off, you don't get fired, and you can still advance in the companies. Personally, that's not what I want to do. I don't like starting over. I like to build on what I have and to continue going. So, you know, those are some of the fears. And, you know, I've already talked about the benefits of it. It's flexible. It's rewarding. The personal growth is incredible. And, you know, once you reach certain levels too, then there are great rewards like cars and trips and, you know, Shaklee pays for those. And, you know, those are some big deals. I don't know most jobs that, you know, do that for their employees. Just like my mother-in-law, she's a nurse, and she's been at the same hospital for, I want to say, over 25 years now. And I think for her 25-year anniversary, they gave her like a toaster or something like that. Ridiculous. Like, I think I'd rather have a car and a trip than a toaster, personally. You know, so these are all the reasons, and it really does work for moms, especially those who are looking for something else, who want that third option. Who are tired of being told that you can only do this or that and, you know, you can't have it all, because I'm here to tell you that you can. You can work in between your kids' naps. You can work when they go to bed. You can work while they're at the park, while they're playing. You know, you could be making a few phone calls or just using that time to interact and meet new people. So it does work, and it works incredibly well for stay-at-home moms. So I'm going to open it up now to you if you have any questions. Let me stop sharing my screen here. Hang on one second. Bear with me. Maybe. Oh, there we go. Stop share. Okay. So let me go ahead and unmute you. Welcome back.
Hey.
So, do you guys have any questions? Or Karen, do you want to share, you know, what you love about your business and, you know, why you picked it?
Well, I picked Shaklee because, again, there is a possible way for me to go get a job.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, he's home at the kids' bedtime. So, and then he gets up at 2:30 and starts all over again. So it was kind of, and I've done businesses like this before, but I've never been like, yeah, I can do it. It's just kind of, whatever. But I talked to Alyssa a lot, and I was like, I've been using Shaklee since I was a little girl, literally. Mm-hmm. So that was helpful because I know the products and I know they're good. And I don't know, I felt like it was right this time. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Sometimes it's just not the right time. You know, I've been talking to people before, and right. You know, they're excited and they're interested, but it's just not exactly the right time. And then, you know, they come back to me in a few months and they're like, oh yeah, you know, I still want to do that. And I think I want to get started now, kind of thing. So, you know,
yes,
it's all about
Alyssa has asked, right. Alyssa had asked me before, like a couple years ago, and I was like, no, not a chance. I am not, like, I will support you in any way I can, but I do not want to do the business.
Right.
So here I am.
Yeah. Awesome. And I see Heather joined us. Hi, Heather.
Yeah.
Can you hear us, Heather? I don't know if she can.
I would guess no.
I guess not. Virginia,
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I guess what do you love about Shaklee, and where are you in your Shaklee journey, I guess, if that makes sense?
Well, I started doing Shaklee for the cleaning products and stuff, just because I was noticing that I wouldn't feel good after I would use some of the chemicals that the stores would have and stuff. And plus, I wanted to save money, and I've noticed with me using the Shaklee Clean and stuff, I've saved a lot of money that lasts a lot longer than like the store things that you buy in the store.
Right. Yeah. I know. I felt the same. Like I was one of those where the best advertisements or the best packaging would get me at the store, and I would take it home and I would try it and I would use it, and I was never really that impressed. And not to mention it was expensive. I mean, I was using the, natural cleaners at the store, and one bottle of those was like, what, $2.99, $3.99? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, and I never used the whole thing, and I never really cared for the results. So yeah, the cleaners are definitely great, and they change, they change the way that you clean your house. That's for sure. I did want to go back and share one more thing, kind of about the business, because look, it went right to it. Look at that. Okay. Because the great thing about this business is there's a way for everyone to fit in. I mean, Karen and I are kind of on one path, and, in Virginia, you're doing another. That's where we get this use, share, build model. When you're using the products, that's a great way to transform your own health and that of your families. And then the share, that's how I got started, because I wanted to share the same results that I got with other people, but then I also wanted to get paid, for sharing. Excuse me. And then, you get to the build, and that's where Karen and I are heading, and that's where Alyssa is. Alyssa, if you guys know her, she has replaced her full-time teaching income, and she's been doing this business for about 4 years now, a little more. And the other great thing about this business is you get to build your own team, and that's where Alyssa is. Alyssa has, I don't even know how many of us are on the team now. I want to say maybe 10? 8 to 10,
somewhere around there. Yeah.
Right. And I'm just talking like business leaders on her team, not her members. Right. She has a lot of members, but she gets to, come alongside us and train us. And that's been something that's always been like on the forefront of my mind. I love training people. I love encouraging people. And I love that I get to show people that, if you do X amount of contacts, and, you work this amount of time, and, you do these things that are duplicatable, so-and-so has done it and I've done it, and, it works, then, you can make this X amount of money. And I love that it's very straightforward. It's simple. You have to do the work. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not a scheme. It does take hard work. And it does take time, but you do make money. I want to show you this one here. I just want to show you like how it works as a business. How do you make money doing it, kind of thing. So basically, you have your minimum PV of 100, and that's what you have to do in order to get paid, right? Pretty much if you're using Shaklee, that's going to be your, if you're doing vitamins and protein, that's your vitamins and protein. So that's where it starts. But then, to show you if you get members. So if you're talking to, 10 different people and they are interested in what you're doing, then they sign up under you. And so if each of those 10 people have 100 PV as well Well, there you go. You're already over, an associate, and that's about 200 to 300 a month, I want to say. So that's a lot. I mean, that covers most people's, everything that you use, basically. And then this is the next step up. So director. So this is where I'm shooting for. This is what Karen's shooting for. I think Heather's still frozen down there, but I know this is what, this is our next step in our goal process. And this is where, it gets really exciting because you have, you yourself, you're doing, what you always do. You still have your 10 members at least that are, doing their 100 PV each. But then you get 3 builders. So this is where you're growing your team. Say, they're probably going to be working toward director too. But even for them just signing up with their gold packs, that gives you at least 250 PV, in your group volume organization. And so right there, you're already at 2,500 PV. I should say PGV. I mean, that's your whole group volume. And to be a director, you only have to be at 2,000. And once you get there, that's about $500 to $800 a month. And for most people, that's a part-time job, and you're not away from your family. You're not, wasting money driving places, because if you are going places for Shaklee, you can write that off. Great tax benefits for having a home-based business. So, as you can see, it's a very simple model. It's just about talking to people, finding people, who want to be on your team, who want to do the same thing, who want to share and build their group. So I love that, and, we didn't really talk about why Shaklee, because I love Shaklee. Thank you. I love Shaklee in the first place, but, it's all about the quality. It's just about, changing brands. The products that Shaklee has, is everything that you really need in your home, whether it's cleaning, beauty supplies, like your skincare, or it's just your natural supplementation, or just having a healthy weight, whether it's toning or losing weight, So Shaklee really has everything. And if you just think about replacing, the products that you already use, the products that you're getting at the grocery store, with Shaklee products, not only is it going to change your life, but that's how you start growing your business as well. And as we know, Shaklee's quality is just, it can't really even be compared to the rest, Here, I want to go up here to this, there's, it's just, it's so funny. I was just at a vendor fair, and people say, well, why Shaklee? What makes a difference? There's like 10 other vendors over here that have shakes. And, I say, to me, I'm like, it doesn't even compare, but I know people don't believe me, first of all, but, and then I show them this, a slide like this, where I'm like, what? It's always safe. Not saying that, well, you might get something in that product that wasn't exactly that good, No, it's always safe. It's always green. It always works, and I think the always works is a big difference from most companies. A lot of companies promise the moon, but don't really deliver, just because they want to make a bunch of sales. And I love that Shaklee is not like that. Shaklee will not make a sale if their quality is not up to their standards. And then apart from that, the research and development that they put in is just insane. They have 100,000 quality tests per year. I don't know how many the other companies have, but I can't imagine it's even close to that. The Life Plan itself had over 74,000 pages published of research. It's just, it's crazy. Over 74,000 tests, quality tests on that alone. So pretty crazy. So I got about 10 minutes left, and we're going to wrap this up here real quick. So I love Shaklee. I love my business. And like I said, it really works for moms. So that is the presentation. And I'd love to, hear from you if you have, questions about getting started. And if you'd like to hear more stories, if you'd like to talk to Alyssa or talk to Charlene, to get someone's perspective who's been in it a lot longer than, Karen and I have, then, we would love to do that. And we would love to have you join us on our next one. I'm actually doing another one of these tonight, I think at 8:30 Central Standard Time. But it's going to start being a weekly thing because we really want to invite moms, during nap time before your kids get home from school, to join in and learn about the third option. And, information never hurts. So I'm going to stop recording now, and everyone have a great day.